This is the new Force Gurkha. Now, it's been a long time coming. It was first shown at Auto Expo 2020, but it's finally here. And there's a lot to talk about because this one is built on a new chassis. It's new on the outside, it's new on the inside, so there's a lot of ground to cover. The promise is of a hardcore off-roader that's also got a very easygoing and user-friendly side. Question is, does it deliver on that promise? The new Gurkha sure looks the business. With its boxy shape, cliff-face sides, clamshell bonnet, round headlights and all, the new Gurkha carries forward the old one's G-Class for the masses look. However, the overall treatment is far more sophisticated and something that becomes very evident when we see Gurkhas old and new together. Every panel is new, and what's also clear is that quality is vastly improved. There are tighter shut lines all over, and this impression of enhanced quality alone helps elevate the Gurkha from a rudimentary off-roader to something more lifestyle-y. The loud shade of orange does its bit too. The new model has its share of eye-catching details as well. It wears the new Gurkha lettering on its grille as a badge of honor, and the jewel-like LED DRLs on the sunken-in headlights work really well. Worth noting is that the headlights are full LED units, which is a first in the segment. The high set position of the indicators hasn't been tinkered with, but the bonnet is chunkier, the front bumper is fuller, and there's a heavy duty bash plate too that gives the Gurkha sufficient street cred. And like the previous Gurkha, this one's snorkel is standard, with official wading ability rated at 700mm. Of course, there's heavy cladding around the wheel arches, and what's nice is that the standard fit footboard has been neatly integrated into the look. At the sides, however, it's the single pane rear glass in place of the three-part windows that does the most to distinguish the new Gurkha. Flush-fitting windows, higher set tail lights that sit on the bodywork rather than at the bumper, and a new bumper are the changes of note at the back. A full-size spare tire that sits on the tailgate completes the look. There's scope to personalize your Gurkha too. Our test car is decked up with a rear ladder, roof rack with a jerry can holder and all-terrain tires, and there'll be more on the accessories menu as well. In size, the new Gurkha is marginally wider and taller than the old one and is identical in its 2400mm wheelbase too. But overall length is up by a substantial 124mm, primarily courtesy the longer front overhang that was required to incorporate structures to meet the latest crash and pedestrian protection norms. At the Gurkha's core is a new high-strength steel ladder frame chassis that uses CNC construction that Force says offers best torsional rigidity in the segment. The frame is designed to support 4-length configurations and importantly will also form the base for a 5-door Gurkha that comes soon. Like the last gen Gurkha Explorer and Expedition, the new one features an independent double wishbone front suspension and a multi-link live axle arrangement at the back. There's anti-roll bars front and rear and coil springs at all 4 wheels. Before we go any further, let us know what you think of the new Gurkha in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, do like the video and subscribe to the Autocar India channel for the latest from us. You'll need a ladder to work your way into this ladder frame off-roader. It's that high set off the ground. Thankfully, Force has given a side step as part of standard fitment, and you also get this chunky grab rail to haul your way into the cabin. Before I give you a tour of the new Gurkha's cabin, here's a quick look at what the last one was like inside. And viewed in this perspective, the new Gurkha's cabin is light years ahead of the old ones, but by modern standards, it's still what you'd call functional and not fancy. You get modern stuff like a touchscreen, though it does look aftermarket, but on the other hand, it does feature Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and gets the job done. The dials are also fairly simple by modern standards, but the fact is that you get a tachometer at the traditional instrument console and not at the center console as was the case with the old Gurkha. That the dashboard extends to the floor is a big upgrade in its own. It's finished in hard and shiny plastics that look and feel very basic though. However, what is nice are the seats. They're really large and supportive, and ergonomics have also improved vastly. The steering, for instance, gets both tilt and telescopic adjust, and even things like the aircon controls, the rotary knobs, are in easy reach. There's also plenty of storage space on the center console. There is a handy glove box, and you also get 4 USB slots, 2 up front and 2 right here. There's an aftermarket looking tire pressure monitoring system as well that sits near the instrument cluster. Other features include front power windows, the buttons for which sit near the gear lever, central locking and a rear wiper, while dual airbags, speed sensing door locks and rear parking sensors are part of the safety suite. A Mahindra Thar will get you more kit and also has the more upmarket interior. Where the Gurkha scores big is in rear seat comfort. The rear seats comprise two forward-facing chairs, access to which is via the side-hinged rear door. A footstep helps with the steep climb up, and you will have to duck walk your way through the passage between the seats too, but it sure beats entering via the front door. Getting to the Force Gurkha's second row is relatively easy as 3-door SUVs and off-roaders go. And once you're inside, you'll also find that comfort is pretty good. Now, the front passenger seat is set to a comfortable position for someone of my size. I'm just under 6 feet tall, and at the back I have enough room for my feet. There is a decent amount of knee room, and what is a big surprise are the seats themselves. They're really comfortable. They're large and supportive, get a good range of motion thanks to the backrest adjust. You can also adjust the angle of the armrest, and the seating position itself is really nice. You get a nice natural armrest with the window sill as well. Taller passengers will find the top of the windows at eye level, so you will need to slouch down a bit to get a really good view out. Now, speaking of the view, a big change on the new Gurkha is the switch to a single pane window at the back. There's no way to open it, and given that there are no aircon vents at the back, the impression is that this could be a rather stuffy area. However, the view out is good. You have a lot of space inside the cabin, and air conditioning is also really impressive. So, a stuffy place this ain't. The Gurkha also impresses in terms of luggage space. You can store large suitcases behind the rear seats, but will also need serious might when it's time to load and unload heavy items. The new Gurkha already feels superior to the old one, and we haven't even turned a wheel yet. Could there be more surprises in store? A quick look at the specifications wouldn't suggest so. The new Gurkha continues with the long-standing Mercedes-derived 2.6-litre diesel engine that's been upgraded to BS6 spec. Before you ask, the 140 horsepower 2.2-litre diesel engine from the old Gurkha Extreme has been dropped, and there won't be any petrol option either. In BS6 Avatar, the 2.6 engine sees a mild bump up in power and torque, though the 91 horsepower and 250 Nm figures are strictly average. That the max torque is available from 1400 to 2400 RPM tells you much about this unit's characteristics. The Gurkha's power and torque figures might not seem like much, but on the open road, what really gets you is the ease with which the Gurkha just pulls forward. There is lots of pulling power at your disposal, but this engine just does not like to rev. It's happy at low RPMs, 1000, 1500, 2000, but at 3500 RPM, the party's over. It does not rev beyond that. It's almost like a commercial vehicle engine in that sense. That's because it's designed for that role too. Cool trivia is that the unit also powers the Force Track's people mover. The easy access to power means you can get by with fewer gear shifts, which is just as well because the 5-speed unit isn't the nicest to use and the shift action occasionally leaves you second-guessing gear changes. The clutch is light, but a more progressive action would be nice. A dead pedal to rest your left foot on would also be a welcome inclusion. The Gurkha gets up to speed in an unhurried manner and will maintain a steady cruise, but it's not punchy. On the plus side, you won't lose momentum as there's no need to slow down for broken patches of road. Bombed out roads make absolutely no difference to the Gurkha. The suspension, the chassis, they just feel like they're built to take a pounding. Ride quality is also quite nice. It's fairly cushy and soft when the road is smooth, but when the surface deteriorates, that ample wheel travel really comes into play. That ladder frame typical judder to the body is also well contained, but do remember not to wrap your thumbs around the steering wheel because on really bad bumps, the steering kicks back and kicks back hard. There's also play at the steering, and quick cornering isn't the top-heavy Gurkha's forte, which is only to be expected. At low speeds, the steering calls for many turns lock to lock, but it's easy enough to twirl, and the 11.3 meter turning circle is manageable too. A reverse camera would have made life easier though. On the whole, the experience behind the wheel is vastly improved, and there's another aspect to its newfound user friendliness as well. The new Gurkha has taken a huge jump in terms of refinement and comfort. Now, it will not be comparable to a modern day monocoque SUV, but given what the Gurkha was to what it's become, there's almost a decade's worth of difference between the two. The engine in BS6 Avatar runs quieter, and you also hear less road noise, less from the suspension, and in general that makes this an easier vehicle to live with, and it does make a stronger case as your only vehicle. But more civilized as it may have become, the Gurkha remains a hardy off-roader that comes into its element as you leave the road. That skyscraper high seating suddenly makes a great deal of sense. In the wild, visibility is everything, and the Gurkha scores really well on that front. You sit high up, the upright pillars equal a great view all around, and with the indicators on the bonnet, you also have a fair idea of where your Gurkha's extremities are. There's more that adds to your confidence in the wild. We're at the tail end of the monsoons. It hasn't been raining all that heavily, so there's no flooding in the areas where we are, which is good. But I must say that the Gurkha seems almost ready for any eventuality on that front. It's got this snorkel that gives it immense water wading ability. I can't show it to you today, but if you Google and search for a few videos of the Gurkha in river crossings, you'll get what I mean. The slushy pits and hillocks on our path don't challenge the Gurkha. The Gurkha just charges on an off-road trail. It feels indestructible, as you'd want a hardcore off-roader too. And you know what? I haven't even needed to get out of two-wheel drive so far. The Gurkha will achieve more in two-wheel drive than most SUVs will in their most hardcore setting. Four-wheel drive unlocks a new level of ability. So the Force Gurkha is fairly straightforward in its off-road settings. You have a four-wheel drive lever, get it to 4 high, and that's where the fun starts. In 4 high, the Gurkha dismisses the stomach-churning side incline far better than I do, and thanks to its short wheelbase, 205mm ground clearance and good off-road angles, it tackles a series of large humps like an invertebrate. And we're out. No Gurkhas were harmed in the making of this video. I have to try to do something stupid to get the Gurkha into trouble, and it's a hump taken at an awkward angle that finally does the trick. The independent front suspension doesn't offer enough articulation to let the tires all the way down, and what that leaves me with is a front right tire hanging mid-air and spinning furiously, but to no avail. Nothing to do but back out and dip into the Gurkha's off-road box of tricks. There's rear and front differential locks, and it's the latter that should see me through. Okay, so now I will engage the front differential lock. It's a fairly old school arrangement with this lever. Pull up, twist, wait for the symbol on the instrument cluster, and ready to go. Absolutely light hand on the steering. Full marks for effort to the Force Gurkha. 4 low comes into play as I attempt a steep hill climb. The Gurkha's low-end torque is your best friend when you have a steep incline like this. It's just chugging along, no questions asked. The Gurkha's low-speed idling has been calibrated to allow it to climb without any throttle inputs. There's no off-road screen to tell you the incline angle, but the Gurkha can climb up to 35 degrees. Okay, now the gradient is getting a bit more serious. I can feel my body push harder and harder against my seat. But when you have a view like that, it is worth it. In fact, the Gurkha's ability to get you anywhere makes it one hell of a picnic vehicle. The Gurkha thrashes its way to the hilltop, which is a Martian surface of loose rock and mud. It's a vehicle that'll take you where few others can. Now that the Gurkha has summited, time to summarize the Gurkha. How a Thar would do on the same roads and on the same trail is a question for another day. What's certain is that the massive mainstream interest in the Thar will have a positive rub-off on the new Gurkha too, and Force Motors is upskilling its sales and service staff to better cater to a more urban clientele. However, if there's one takeaway of the day with the new Gurkha, it's that it's not a one-trick pony like his predecessor was. That is, great off-road but compromised in every other respect. The Gurkha has become more practical, friendlier and cooler even, and has evolved to the extent that it can be thought of as your only vehicle. Make no mistake though, because the Gurkha is still no softie. It's very much a hardcore off-roader first, whose natural habitat is the real jungle and not the urban one. Those looking for the latest of gizmos and car-like comfort need not apply. An automatic transmission would have made the Gurkha easier to live with, and the plastics need an upgrade as well. Even so, there's a likeable "what you see is what you get" honesty to the package. Likely to be priced at around 13 lakh rupees ex-showroom, which is base Thar money, the Gurkha remains a committed buy, but one that's become a whole lot easier to commit to.
चलो बेटा खत्म अभी एंट्री लेना है वो साइड से बता बल्लू
Yeah. चलो ready?
नहीं यार मुझे नहीं
चल. And I don't know why I was looking at you.
मैं कट कर रहा हूँ
अच्छा नहीं